Welcome to The Most Important Thing. I'm Danielle DeMarco Neufeld.
And I'm Greg Neufeld. Together, we're exploring how ambitious, busy families can build culture at home.
Because after all, family is the most important thing. Hi, everybody. Hi, Greg. Welcome back.
Back indeed. We are back from the left coast.
That's right. It's been a little while since we've recorded one of these. I'm still a little bit jet lagged, but it's not terrible. Me and my whole 3 hours.
3 hours.
I know. You do so great with jet lag. You can sleep anytime, anywhere. For me, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, this household minus me has been a little bit rocky since we touched down, but it's been just rolling right into the next thing, right?
Yeah.
From jet lag to first day of school.
Yeah, I think the kids have adjusted pretty well. It's really just me. Well, that's not true. I had to wake them up this morning, which is surprising.
I don't know. I saw there was a whole chat from the school of photos of kids like tuckered out from the first day. So I'm not surprised that they were among those.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, should we talk about our trip?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. It was awesome.
It was.
We all survived and mostly thrived, I would say.
Yeah. So we spent 14 days together in Washington State, plus 2 travel days. And it was glorious. We hit 4 Airbnbs, 4 different cities in Northwest Washington, including Seattle to finish it off. And explored a lot of nature, but really did a lot of exploring on what's capable as a family.
Yeah, I think we came home with a renewed idea of what's possible.
Yeah.
Which is great. Do you have any peak moments that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think in each stop there was something pretty magical. So in Port Angeles, which was our first stop, I think Hurricane Ridge was just awesome. I mean, showing the kids what mountains are, I don't think there's any way to relive that. We only get one shot at showing them the mountains, and we did a hell of a job there. That was just awesome.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I have a different peak moment idea of Hurricane Ridge, which was that I was like trying to defend the life of myself and my child. So Maverick and I was pushing Maverick in the stroller, and they said it was a family-friendly hike, which it was in the sense that it was paved, but it was an actual ridge, meaning like if you have one wrong step, you are going over a cliff never to return again. Not like I'm going to roll in some wildflowers like when we went to Mount Rainier, I'm going to fall onto a rock. No, like you are dead gone, dropping 500 feet. Like there's no option. So while I agree, it was beautiful and I enjoyed the kind of strenuous elevation gains, I don't know if I will ever forget the feeling of holding on to Maverick's stroller for dear life, wondering if I was going to trip and he would have gone off the side of the ridge.
Yeah.
But we survived.
We did, and you look good doing it.
Oh, thanks.
One thing I got to say about that is I think every outdoorsy experience needs some like gut checks on whether or not you're going to make it out. Like, you are, but like there's a tiny little bit where you're like concerned. And I think that keeps you together. That keeps me together for sure. Focused on
present moment,
the right steps, the present moment, like one foot in front of the other.
It's risky play.
Exactly.
I kept saying to Hunter, because she was saying, this is a little dangerous here and there, throughout the couple of weeks. And I said, yeah, it's risky play. It keeps us focused, keeps us in the present moment. And that said, I would say Hurricane Ridge was something a little bit different. Like we watched a YouTube video of a family with a child younger than ours. And the guy was like, I am holding on for dear life. I am so focused right now, when the woman was trying to do the travel log. And we were laughing at them. We were making fun of them, saying like, okay. And then Hunter was like, oh my God, we shouldn't go. And I'm like, it's okay. No problem. It's their first kid and, they'll be fine. No, they were right. They were absolutely right. Don't take my word for it. Try it yourself, but maybe don't bring a stroller.
Yeah. Yeah, true. So Hurricane Ridge, I think, was a very present moment peak where I did feel a little bit like we were living on the edge, and walking with the kids down that ridge, like really focused. Like part of me is like, this is beautiful. Part of me is like, I can't believe we're doing this, and part of me is like, I can't wait till this is over.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the experience, right? I think if I reflect on all of the hard things that I did as a kid, and I'm still alive for, it was that same sensation, right? Of just like, am I going to make it? Yeah, I probably am, but I better focus.
Sure. It's exhilaration, I think, is the word that I would use for it.
Yeah. And then Lake Crescent was unbelievable as well, out of Port Angeles, which was another peak. Out of Forks, there was a hidden rainforest that we found that was unbelievable, where we also had 2 dogs show up and guide us through the trail like we were in.
It was straight out of where the red fern grows. Yeah. It was insane, but it was great. It was beautiful. Obviously, the kids loved seeing the dogs because we missed Winston desperately.
Yeah. Mount Rainier was just cool to see. I enjoyed that.
I think we were a little hiked out by the time we got to Mount Rainier as well.
It was cool. It was so cool to go up and then to see it from different perspectives throughout the rest of the trip. Like when we were on the ferry from Bainbridge Island to Seattle, we could see Mount Rainier. It's like, whoa.
We were there.
Yeah. And in Seattle, the house that we stayed at was very special. We could talk more about that sometime, but also seeing friends and family.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I also loved just having time to play games.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of puzzles and played quite a few games. We discovered Battleship as a family, The Game of Life, Clue, all things that we don't have at home.
Yeah.
We have all these like fancy game right games, but the old school ones were really fun to do together.
Yeah.
And to get the kids involved, which they did a bit this summer, but more in family workout, like just doing a little bit of like circuit training or running in the mornings, I think was really fun to have everybody get involved.
Yeah, it was so nice. It was so nice and the weather really cooperated with us as well. So we had, I think, maybe 30 minutes of rain.
Yeah.
In the Pacific Northwest. Like, how does that even happen?
Totally. And then the last thing I'll say is that the Cybertruck was pretty awesome.
Yes.
The kids loved being 3 across. I loved how spacious it was, both for our luggage, but also sitting in the car. And the beautiful, what do you call this? The windshield, I guess. It was the perfect sightseeing car, especially because it could get really dirty, and we felt fine with it.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Like, you had the vision there. The Cybertruck is the perfect family vehicle. It's in our future.
Yeah, it is. Also, the autopilot on the windy roads, as long as you trust it, which we do.
It's amazing.
It's way better for you than trying to navigate.
I was saying it's like the difference between driving all around Washington State and just being a passenger on a train. And I just got to sit there while the car drove. I think I disengaged autopilot all of 2 times. And once was because someone didn't like our Cybertruck and was going to sideswipe us.
Oh, that was a little rough. Yeah, we definitely got some dirty looks. Vehicle. It's such a polarizing vehicle.
But everyone wanted to see it, who was like genuinely curious about what it was. And we're so surprised about, the minimal inside and the huge, that it was a pickup truck, because most people don't know. They're like, what is this thing?
Yeah. I think a lot of people put a lot of their own ideas, like project a lot of things onto cars. Like that's definitely been our experience.
For sure.
Like we have some friends that are no longer our friends because of Teslas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like it's just a car, people. Like that's how I feel about it. It's just a car, and it happens to be a great car, but that doesn't mean it's for everyone. It just happens to be a great car for us.
Yeah, there's got to be a culture study there, because the culture of the Elon Musk companies versus, let's say a culture of a place like Apple, right? They both make very similar products at Tesla versus Apple. I would say that the Tesla is the iPhone of the car.
For
right?
sure.
Like, but there's bumper stickers all over that are like, I got the car before he was crazy. Like,
I hate Elon Musk.
I hate Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Having a leader that is benevolent, like a Tim Cook, who like kind of, is Tim Apple, just like,
by the
Mr.
way, that's
Rogers.
the CEO of Apple, in case you didn't know, because of exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. But like, benevolent, like Tim Apple versus Elon Musk changes the culture around the employees and who is going to work there, as well as the consumer experience and what it's like to be a consumer. Like, I just want a good car for my family that drives itself. And all of a sudden, I'm labeled as something as a result.
I'd be really curious to know if there were other cars throughout history that encouraged people to play chicken or sideswipe. Like the feedback that, some of the things that we experienced on the road with people really being aggressive, giving us the middle finger, trying to push us off the road. Like I'm curious if throughout history that has happened with other cars.
Well, it definitely happened with the Model T and the first Fords, but that was because people are like,
there were no other cars.
They're like, it's like a horse and buggy driving by, be like, whippersnapper, right? And people didn't like the idea of cars because it was changing an industry. But for Tesla, this is a political component that I don't know if we've ever seen. I'm sure at some point people boycotted Fords because he was like anti-Semitic later in life, but I don't think no one has ever had a platform like Elon Musk. He owns the platform that broadcasts all of the things that he says. And so it's just amplified by, N%. So it's interesting. It's just such an interesting study of of humanity.
I know. Yeah. I think that a Cybertruck probably isn't our future. You drive like an asshole all the time.
You're using the wrong word there.
Okay. You drive. What word would you like me to use?
I own my space. So if I want to park somewhere for a moment, I will. If I believe that it is not harming people. You're a very
aggressive driver?
I don't think I'm an aggressive driver.
You're more of like aggressive in the space. It's not even like when we're driving.
I'm an aggressive parker. I'm an aggressive like idler.
Intersection.
Here's a good example. I pull up right to the bathrooms to let you and the family out in a busy parking lot at Mount Rainier, and then park there to go to the bathroom because I'm not blocking anybody. I agree.
Anyway, you're aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't drive like an asshole. There's a lot of people in Florida that drive like an asshole.
Excuse me. I apologize. Let me be more specific. You navigate intersections, parking lots, public areas with vehicles in a very confident manner.
Yes.
And when you are in a Model X, which is essentially the minivan of Teslas, it's fine. Mm-hmm. We're in it's a pretty nondescript blue car. When you are in a Cybertruck, it brings it to a whole nother level. So this kind of the fact that people are projecting, good or bad, their feelings on that car, and then you come in with bravado, it's a little uncomfortable for me.
It just means we need like an iridescent wrap with butterflies
so that
and
it's
unicorns,
like a girl.
And
exactly.
I need to keep the windows down so you can see it's like a nice family.
Yes, I know. That's the thing. Maybe it's my Cybertruck with iridescence.
There you go.
Okay. Anyway, we digress. We have I am so excited about this topic today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so I think that a peak was also, for me, seeing how we got there and back without incident. Like, I was the most worried about the travel days. I was like, we are so in for it. We are so screwed. We're taking 2 flights out. We're taking a 6-hour flight back, like in the middle of peak travel season. There's bound to be delays. There's bound to be issues. Like, who knows if we're going to get in before midnight on the first night. Like, I was definitely preparing for the worst case scenario.
Which is so funny because I was like the complete opposite. I was like, I'm going to bring enough food and the children will read and do homework and meditate and it will be just fine. No screens.
Yeah, that was funny too. We were in the middle of the ocean one day and I was like, yeah, and you guys will get to watch movies. And you're like, I don't know about that. And I'm like, let me pull you aside and tell you what's going to happen on this travel day. They're going to do whatever they want when it comes to screens because they get no screens otherwise.
Oh my gosh. And this is why we're having this conversation today about dopamine and how to build a dopamine moat around the family, because I am a bit militant about cheap dopamine, right? Yeah. And specifically around movies and around TV time, because I find that the kids are bears after they watch a movie and after they watch TV. So yeah, that's just one of the things that I'm pretty militant about. Sugar is another one. But on the trip, it was great. I got to read 2 books because I didn't get bothered for 5 hours straight on either ride because the children watched so many movies straight,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Maverick fell in love with Star Wars, and my favorite thing about him watching Star Wars, besides the fact that he understood what was going on, was that when he had to turn off the third movie in the original trilogy, episode 6, he had to turn it off like a quarter of the way in because we were landing, or we had landed. He was like, "Okay, I'll watch it on the next plane," and I was like, "Yes, that's exactly right. You are not watching this movie until we get on another plane."
Yeah. I mean, that's how it works for us, right?
But it's so amazing. Like, this is the reason to withhold screens seems to be because we get to bring it out in like this rare occasion, and it's a moment of wow for them.
Yeah, that's the hope. Right. But I noticed, even though like I'm fine with the fact that they all watched screens and I loved getting to read my book. I should say Hunter chose to listen to her audiobook on the way home because she recognized that watching so many movies didn't make her feel good, which I thought was great growth. But for Jade in particular, she would just sit there, her whole body engrossed in each screen, in each movie. But then when it would be over, she'd be like, "Mom, I'm done. I'm done. The movie's over. I'm done. I'm done." And I was like, "Whew, okay, let's do some deep breathing. Do you have to go to the bathroom? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Like, let's check in with our bodies," because you could tell she was in a complete vortex, like completely under the influence, totally engrossed in what she was watching for 2 hours straight. Which I guess on one hand is like a good attention span, but
And an amazing attention span.
like something happened in her brain,
Yeah.
right? And so this is something that I've been thinking about for a while, is just like the way that a lot of today's cheap dopamine, whether it's sugar or Netflix streaming or same day Amazon deliveries, is hijacking not just the kids' brains, but all of our brains.
Yeah.
And what we can do to be more intentional about it and not just say, no, you're never going to watch a movie ever again. But in these opportunities where we do decide to watch a family movie, or we do decide to have something sweet to celebrate something, right? To celebrate some occasion, how we can, one, like all of us understand what's happening in our brain. 2, prevent about, like alleviate the worst of it, if you will. And 3, just really develop a strong baseline in our bodies so that when we do have these high dopamine inducing events, we are better able to get back to a healthy baseline. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And so you frame this as putting a dopamine moat around our family?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a phrase that I had heard not about family, but around your own life from Andrew Huberman. And I think it's a really worthwhile conversation to have for the whole family. So I think we should start by talking about what is dopamine.
Yep.
Okay. Because I think I had a little bit of a skew understanding of it because I was thinking about it more as it relates to pleasure. But dopamine, it's often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter. And it helps let's see. Dopamine exists to help people survive and grow. So it's the thing that made people get out of their tents and go build a fire, go hunting. It is truly a motivating, I asked GPT to explain it to me like a 7-year-old, and it said, dopamine is like your brain's energy juice. So this is the thing that helps you start and keep going. It doesn't mean that you're happy. It means that your brain says, ooh, let's go get up and go and do that thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a great example of it's not what you experience when you're eating ice cream. It's dopamine that says, we have ice cream in the freezer. Let's go get it.
Yes.
Right? I was talking to Jen Zellman, one of my closest friends that we always like to talk psychology. And yesterday I was telling her about my research for this episode. And she and I both had the misunderstanding that it really was about pleasure. And so when I explained it to her, she said, wow, that's why I love TJ Maxx, the thrill of the hunt. And that is exactly what dopamine is, the thrill of the hunt.
So we're wired to be dopamine feeding animals, right? But it's usually like I'm guessing the historical leverage of dopamine is to get up and go do the thing, like get up and go hunt for food.
Correct. That's
like
it. Yes.
Get, to, work together as a team to get that whale, and reel it in.
Absolutely.
So things like that.
And so there are other, I'm not going to profess to be a brain expert, but there are other like feel good hormones, right? Like oxytocin. This is not that, right? This is, truly you get the biggest dopamine surge before you actually get the thing.
That makes total sense.
Right? That's why Christmas Eve is always my favorite day of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And 9:52 a.m. on Christmas morning is my least favorite time of the year.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like so much expectation, so much excitement. And so that's actually the thing that I think is important to know about dopamine is that, so in the 1970s, a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania named Richard Solomon developed something called the opponent process theory. And so basically it says that every time you get a dopamine spike, your brain later pushes back with the opposite feeling. So you can think of it like a seesaw. If you push down on the fun side, then the not so fun side goes back. And because the brain loves balance, homeostasis, the more you push for fun, the harder the not fun side is going to push back. And so it's really not just that your brain compensates. So your brain compensates with a dopamine spike by dialing down dopamine, but it's not just that. It also dials up stress chemicals, which make the crash really hard, not just empty.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then over time with repeated stimuli, because another aspect of dopamine is that it trains your brain. So every time you have a dopamine surge from some activity, your brain remembers like, that was fun, let's do it again. And so that can be channeled in a positive or adaptive way for things like sports or learning an instrument, but it can also be hijacked through things like sugar or screens or gambling. And so over time with what they call like repeated stimuli, so if you're continuously having these dopamine surges, the initial high, like how high the seesaw goes up, is going to get weaker and shorter. And the rebound state, the not fun state, is actually going to get longer and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Because the brain keeps adjusting to protect its balance.
Sure.
And so that's actually, that seesaw and the opponent process theory is actually underpinnings of a lot of what they think about around addiction and withdrawal as well. Obviously in its most extreme form.
Definitely. And so are there different types of dopamine hits? Like if you are doing something that's meaningful, are you going to experience the dopamine effect differently than if you're doing something that's very fleeting?
Yeah, there's definitely this idea of cheap dopamine in the zeitgeist, which is really what I'll call unnatural. It really, as my understanding of it, is it really comes down to delayed gratification. Mm-hmm. That typically the dopamine rewards that come with things that you'd find more naturally occurring in the world and that tend to have to do with meaning and purpose and have to do with hard work before gratification. It's this instant gratification cycle. Even as simple as we used to have to wait until Thursday night at 8:00 every week to watch Friends. Now, if you want to watch Friends, you can binge watch it the entire day long, right? And so like, what's the biggest form of dopamine? In my view, it's at that end of that episode, it's next episode in 7, 6, 5, right? I get chills when I even think about it.
Totally. Interesting. What I'm trying to build a model around mentally is, are we looking to limit cheap dopamine because it creates a rebound effect the more cheap dopamine we have, or are we looking to limit it so that we can experience real dopamine and not have nearly as much of a rebound because we're not teasing our body so much?
I think it's a great question. I would say everyone kind of has to figure it out for themselves. But for me, as someone who is super sensitive to these highs and lows, it has to do with longer, more drawn out experiences of pain, if you will, of hard work to experience that reward, and having it not, like, it's too tight of a feedback loop, if that makes sense. Like, we've talked about this even as with regards to something we've discussed before on the podcast, blood pressure, how I can't get my blood pressure taken, right? Because to me, that's too tight of a feedback loop. Like, because I know that within 10 seconds, I'm going to have the answer, I get anxiety in the present moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas if it were a much longer feedback loop, like say like a blood test or something that I'm going to get the answer to 3 days later, then perhaps I would have less of a response.
Yep. No, that resonates for sure.
And so a lot of the intrinsic, like a lot of the things that you would get gratification from, even, 30 years ago, like, I don't know, Harry Potter books coming out once every 2 to 3 years and having to wait. We know we have a friend that we're going to talk to on the podcast soon who said that he makes his kids wait every year. He only reads one Harry Potter book a year with them because he wants to delay that gratification and make them wait the way that we did, because that also is it's a healthy motivation. It's a healthy anticipation, a healthy use of dopamine.
Yeah, I like that. I wonder why, from a performance and nootropic perspective, one of the substances I affiliate with dopamine is nicotine. And I would think that nicotine is one of those places where it's such a cheap dopamine hit because you have 20 cigarettes in a pack, and if you want to smoke another one, there you go. And the more you smoke, the more nicotine you get, and the less of a
it's like chain smoking cigarettes. Yeah.
Well, so I'm wondering, like, how people are using, and if it's because of dopamine or if it's something else, why people are now using nicotine as a performance enhancing drug for work, for studying, for even athletics, where this has been available to us for so long. Why is this now coming into the zeitgeist where nicotine becomes something that people think of not as maybe it's more of a stimulant and less of a dopamine cause or dopamine friend? But I'm going to look up after this why that is.
Yeah, I can tell you that nicotine definitely surges with, I should say dopamine surges with nicotine. So it's part of what makes nicotine so addictive.
Yeah. Well, I think about the cheap dopamine hits from my 20s and, things like nicotine and alcohol and uppers and things like that. Like, I've replaced those with working out and caffeine and building my business and building our family, right? Like, those are much healthier dopamine hits, but I'm definitely I have a dysregulated dopamine system, and I look for those dopamine moments all the time. So I think a lot about that when this topic comes up is like, what's the equivalent of what I found in my 20s for our kids? And it's probably candy, Netflix.
For sure. All things that are ubiquitous and so readily available, which was so readily available to you, drugs and alcohol in your 20s, but certainly not as much in our childhood.
Yeah.
Right? It's only increased its influence, right? You mentioned a couple of things. So you said working out, caffeine, and building our businesses. And I would say that the caffeine, no, but there's a crash that comes with caffeine, right? But the other two, working out and building businesses, that is where you really put the hard work and the effort, what one in the seesaw opponent process theory would call the not fun side, before the reward. And so that's actually, to me, the number one way. We want to live in a world where dopamine exists, right? Like, it's an incredibly important aspect of our human makeup. But there's a great way to make this opponent process theory, this seesaw theory, work for you, which is to put the not fun first. And so in order to create balance and homeostasis, the brain floods your body with endorphins, with positive feeling, with dopamine to give you that balance.
Cool. So let's talk about that as like a framework for, how to get positive dopamine benefits in our family.
Yeah. I mean, that is why we do homework every morning, or you and I work out every morning, because doing hard work early in the morning really gives you that boost of dopamine and other feel-good hormones for the rest of the day. I mean, I have a list that we can talk about later in the conversation of everyday ways to boost dopamine. But certainly flipping the seesaw and leveraging the not fun part of the opponent process theory is a great way to build willpower. This is a little bit sciencey, but I discovered this about 6 months ago, and I think that you know how obsessed I am with this, which is that they've discovered that every time that you push through, do hard work, use willpower, not only do you get that strike for balance and positive dopamine boost, but the surge actually grows a part of your brain called the anterior midcingulate cortex. And they have found that people that live a long time have large AMCCs. So we tell our kids, I tell our kids that not only by doing hard things are your skills growing, but your brain is growing too, and it just might help you live longer.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you love that AMC.
I do. I
so
love
great.
it so much.
Yeah.
No, because it's so validating. Because I feel it in my bones, right? That like now this idea, that dopamine has memory, and that when your system recognizes that something felt good, you can channel that for good or bad, right? You can keep watching that next show, or you can push yourself to do 7-minute abs at the end of your workout. Like those are your options.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I should say those are your options because part of this is that dopamine and just your natural levels of dopamine can vary by person based on genetics and circumstance. So that's, I think, an important thing to know and to teach our children, that some people just have more get up and go than others naturally. I have a very large get up and go naturally, which can be a blessing in many ways, but if not channeled correctly, can be very dangerous.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't naturally. I've had to train my brain.
Sorry, it's not funny.
What I love about our balance, though, is I see our kids showing up with a lot of the I don't wannas that I probably had when I was their age.
Let's be clear, Hunter,
yeah,
shows up with the I don't wannas.
But, it shows up. It shows up across the family. Hunter most prevalently because she's an age where she's doing a lot.
You're kind.
But I see that reverse a lot faster. And I think they're getting that from you, which is great.
And Jade.
Yeah.
I think Hunter is getting it most from Jade.
Who's getting it from you? So
I think she just naturally has it. So I don't want to label our children, but like one thing that it seems to be like what I've noticed so far, what I've observed is that Jade's get up and go is much more prevalent than Hunter's. And she's learning so many beautiful things from her younger sister. And that is one of them.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I just feel grateful that, there's a healthy balance in this family, both genetically as well as being modeled.
Yeah. And I think that you have helped me enjoy relaxation and pleasure in life more than I have naturally because I'm so busy getting up and going.
Yeah. No.
And it takes both.
Right. Yeah. I wonder what your crashes were like in college and early, in your career, because you are such the get up and go person that.
Yeah, I feel awful.
Yeah.
They feel absolutely awful when I don't have motivation.
Yeah.
Because I have such a strong, because most days I'm super motivated. But no, it's true. Like the dopamine stuff Sugar was definitely a huge dopamine. Like I definitely got myself in a bad dopamine cycle around sugar in my teens and 20s. TV as well. And so that's but I'm so acutely aware of it. I don't know if everyone feels it as strongly as I do. I don't know. I'm not in other people's bodies, but I would just say that this is something that has really been top of mind for me with the kids forever, because it is something that has the highs are high, but the lows are so low.
Yeah. Yep.
So should we talk about, well, you had wanted to talk a bit about what cheap dopamine does to family culture.
Well, yeah, I think this is kind of the why we care.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a few things that are pretty obvious that cheap dopamine does to kids and that impacts family culture. A couple of them, one is making boredom impossible. So I can see that if our kids are watching a movie on a plane for once in a blue moon and they're enjoying that, great. But if they were watching screens all the time, the plane ride would have been very different. And then another related example is we played audiobooks in the car on a lot of our drives between the Airbnbs and between different sightseeing. I mean, there was a lot of car time, and we found that we could listen to either one audiobook as a family, or the kids could listen to one and we could listen to one. And by the end of that trip, 5 seconds, 10 seconds would pass, and the question would be, Mom, Dad, can we ask you something?
They're afraid to ask.
I
think you're going to say no, but it's an obsession.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as an audiobook quickly became an obsession.
Yeah. And so, my job, I felt in those moments, once realizing that this was going to be a problem, was to change the dynamic and switch to what I grew up with, which is riding in the car, listening to my parents' music.
Exactly. Well, it reminds me of what Jen said, the Italian phrase, dolce far niente, the pleasure of doing nothing.
Yeah.
That is, you have to really intentionally carve out space to do that in the United States today.
For sure. Yeah. To take a walk without a podcast, to take a drive without, listening to something or learning to something.
Without listening to exactly what you want to listen to.
Or talking to someone on the phone.
Yeah.
To sit on a subway, or a train without doing work, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard for all of us, not just for kids.
And, now we're in the age of AI where it's as long as you have an internet connection, you have a friend, you have a chat companion that will answer any question you have and talk to you about any topic you want until you're blue in the face.
Yeah, I think I was telling you yesterday that I was listening to the All In podcast, and Freeberg made a great point about how before, with the early adoption of the internet, you needed to have a person on the other side, like to chat with you with AOL Instant Messenger, say. Mm-hmm. And now with the advent of AI, it is infinite connection, infinite time with another quote unquote person to hear all your problems. And they don't, and by the way, they respond right away. They don't remember. Did you ever play this game with people on AIM where like you wouldn't respond for like 5 minutes? People do it with text messages too, right? But ChatGPT never does that.
Never does
right?
that.
So talk about a tight feedback loop.
Yeah. So
and dopamine hits.
So it makes it really hard to be bored. What does that do to family culture? It's pretty obvious. It creates this demand for constant stimulation. And when you have that inside our family, your family, that's where tension gets created.
Sure. Super irritable, right?
Lots of tension.
Makes everybody super irritable.
The replacing shared effort with instant excitement. So that's another one that came up here, which is the idea that dopamine is best won together. Almost like,
like embracing shared challenges.
Doing a puzzle together, or playing a game together, or taking a walk together, or seeing, exploring a national park together. All of those, all of those take time and effort and are shared efforts. Versus, if you can, I don't know what the cheap dopamine equivalent is, but any cheap dopamine equivalent, let's say, let's go shopping for a new pair of shoes versus the cheap dopamine of, let me buy these right here and they'll be here tomorrow on Amazon, or Zappos. Like, that's replacing the shared effort with the
Yeah.
the instant.
I'm thinking about my dad and his first like designer watch. I think I've told you before
Yes.
that it was 5 years in the making, 7 years in the making. I don't know, but like the complete opposite of a quick dopamine hit. We went to a Breitling store anytime there was one, and he would look around, sometimes try something on, sometimes not. But it took years before he finally hit the bid. And that is a beautiful example, I think. I guess those are really expensive watches,
Mm-hmm.
and he earned it. Like, not only did he earn it financially, but he earned it with his patience and his attention and his delayed gratification,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So modeling the shared effort versus the instant, teaching kids that dopamine comes from shared effort versus instant excitement, I think is a family culture element to watch out for.
I think that's an opportunity for us, I just want to say.
Yeah.
Because I think that we, as we've talked about before, we hire people to do a lot of things. The kids don't necessarily see us doing a lot of work other than with our bodies, right? Like working out or work, like actual career work. There isn't much hard work that goes on in this house, if that makes sense. Like physical stuff, like fixing things or building something. I'm getting a side eye.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it doesn't mean we need to do anything about it. I'm just saying that that is a place that we have not ventured.
Sure.
And as we've discussed, Greg has no interest.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
But as crashes increase, irritability increases, and that creates a lot more surface area for conflict.
Yes.
So I think that's probably the main one that we notice. In fact, yesterday I proposed, after our kids listened to audiobooks even, they should just go outside for 3 minutes, because that when that timer goes off, we give them 30 minutes a day. When that timer goes off, like, it doesn't matter how many days in a row they've listened to it and how many times they know that timer's going off. They really don't want that moment to stop.
Yeah, or they're just like, like there's like blank stares. Yeah. I think getting into the habit of doing something else. Well, so can we talk a little bit about my ideas for defending against the dopamine hijackers?
Absolutely.
Like so obviously Netflix, sugar, video games, all these things, I don't think they're inherently, I don't think we should have a zero tolerance policy against them, but I think understanding what is happening in our brains and teaching it to our kids and really trying to lessen the withdrawal effects, I think can be really meaningful. So I have some ideas. Before the quote unquote cheap dopamine, so let's just say, an audiobook right now, because that's really our version of cheap dopamine in the house. So before the cheap dopamine, insert effort first. So I don't know, do 10 push-ups, do your homework. We do homework in the morning, but like something that feels like you can earn the audiobook can really help with that opponent process theory aspect and doing like the not fun thing first. So I think that should be always thought number one, is like, what kind of hard work, insert effort here before cheap dopamine.
Yeah. Basically sit on the not fun side of the seesaw
Correct.
first to enjoy the fun side a lot more.
And then what you're really doing is you're priming your body to support that crash
Right.
after the dope. And so during the cheap dopamine, just keep it clean. Don't stack. So don't eat while you're listening to your audiobook is a rule that we've come up with, right? Let's not eat candy while we watch a movie, because that just makes the spike that much higher. Mm-hmm. And then after cheap dopamine, reset the system. So they say that most people, up to 80% of people, unintentionally hold their breath or breathe more slowly when they are using screens. They call it screen apnea. And so Huberman has there's a lot of different breaths you could do, but my favorite is the physiological sigh that he talks about, which is a double inhale followed by a slow exhale.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really filling the lungs as much as you possibly can. So the first inhale is a big one, and then the second one kind of caps it off, followed by a slow exhale. Repeat that 1 to 3 times. That's what I had Jade do after her after her movie on the plane.
Nice.
Let's just take some deep breaths.
Yeah.
Because she was definitely not breathing deeply while she was engrossed in Snow White.
Yep. No, it's a good one.
Yeah. And then, outside of those before, during, and after, normalize the seesaw conversation. I think that it's really easy to teach kids that with every high comes a low, and that the more intense the high, the farther we're going to fall.
So with that, we're trying to scaffold the fall, right? By putting something difficult on both sides of the high.
Yeah.
Does that create a higher high? Do we know? Like, is there a higher high?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. And I would say it directly is related to the not how low you go on the not fun side, right?
Yeah.
Like how grueling of a workout versus
Mm-hmm.
the endorphin kick afterwards. I think what it really is it's this moat idea, right? So it's really, we are wrapping it in effort and recovery in order to have like a soft landing.
Yeah.
So moats are not, if you think about it, like from a castle perspective, right? A moat, it's not completely impenetrable, right? But it is slowing down the force, right? It's slowing down the attack.
Yeah, the thing that I'm thinking about is my version of eating an audiobook, which is like sometimes when I'm eating, I'll look at my phone and like read something. And I don't feel like I'm getting a dopamine hit. I actually feel like that makes both experiences worse. Like I don't remember.
Correct. That's like an attention thing,
okay.
more than I would say like dopamine hit. Maybe dopamine has something to do with it, but it's a little bit different than these spikes.
I always hate myself after eating and looking at the phone at the same time because I'm like, I didn't get anything out of either of those experiences.
Right. Yeah, that comes with being intentional and like our attention spans.
Yeah.
I wonder if that has been more aware, that you've been more aware of that since we've started meditating together. Because that's something that happened to me when I first started meditating consistently, is like listening to a podcast while I brush my teeth.
Yeah.
I love to, and it annoys me. Like I know that I'm doing something not so wonderful for my body. The more you know.
Yeah. It's a season for me. Like for some reason during the summer, I don't want to multitask like that. I'm just like happy with enjoying my thoughts while I'm brushing my teeth or whatever. But then come like September, October, and I'm like, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah. Oh boy, don't even talk to me about what happens in Q4 to my body.
I know. Well, I think this is a good episode for us to be putting out there ahead of all of the dopamine-induced festivities, holidays, school
Back
events.
to school in general, yeah.
Back to school in general, for sure. But like, the school comes with lots of baggage. It comes with lots of birthday parties. It comes with lots of, new experiences and people, and just call it like heightened emotions and conflicts.
Yes.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of dopamine that's showing up, I'm sure, in households across the country right now that are then being fed by other cheap dopamine hits. You come home, you get a sweet snack, you get these are recipes for a crash later on.
Mm-hmm. You see someone else's cool pencil case. There's a lot of peer influence too, social comparison involved.
Totally.
Okay. So just to recap, as far as like, if there is going to be a cheap dopamine hit in your day, the 3 things that you can do is try to put hard work or some kind of delay gratification effort before.
Yep.
Don't stack during. So just pick one and really work on resetting afterwards. So deep breathing, taking a walk, something that is going to help your body with that crash landing.
Yeah. In off ramp.
Yes. An off ramp. Exactly.
I like that.
And then finally, I have some everyday ways to increase baseline dopamine as a family. Can we talk about those?
Please.
Okay, great. So number one, none of these are going to be surprising, but I think it's important just to recount them. Number one is sleep, the best dopamine reset for your body. And people may hate me for this, but I did look up the sleep guidelines from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, which has been endorsed by the CDC, Academy of Pediatrics, etc. And for school age children, that's 6 to 12, guess how many hours per night they want you to sleep?
Oh, I cheated, so I know.
Oh, okay. 9 to 12.
Yeah.
For kids ages 6 to 12, 9 to 12 hours of sleep. That's not in bedtime. That's sleep a night,
Yep.
right? I don't even know, like, I don't even think Hunter gets that right now. And if you're younger, it's more like preschoolers, 10 to 13 hours. Sometimes that can include a nap. But the point is that we all need more sleep.
Yeah.
We all need more sleep. And that's the best thing you can do for so many different functions in your body, but certainly for your dopamine reserves or dopamine stores.
Definitely.
The second, when you can't get sleep, is what they call non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, which I discovered when I was pregnant with Hunter through Greg's aunt. It's the specific term, like the specific form of NSDR that we do is called yoga nidra, which tends to be like a 15 to 25 minute body scan. So it's different than a meditation. This is something that I think the research is very clear on, that a focused, sitting up straight, kind of Om type meditation is not NSDR, and it is not yoga nidra. This is non-sleep deep rest. It is when your body truly goes into, I want to call it like a catatonic state. And so that can just, even 10 to 20 minutes of a yoga nidra can restore dopamine reserves by up to 65%. Your aunt used to tell me it was equivalent to like 2 to 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And that sounds crazy, but I always felt it. And this really confirms it.
For sure. I believe it. I think it's really equivalent to a part of the sleep cycle. I think it's equivalent to the REM state. Because I always, when I used to track my sleep, I don't really do that anymore. Would notice if I had a low REM morning, that doing a yoga nidra would give me that feeling like I caught up on REM sleep.
Yeah. Anybody out there that's like first trimester pregnant and just so tired, it got me through every single day, yoga nidra. There are a lot of them on Spotify. There are a lot of yoga nidra for kids playlists on Spotify as well that are just more like 10 to 15 minutes. But just having that as a tool in the toolkit for our family is incredibly helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So sleep, non-sleep deep rest, nutrition, dopamine building blocks, in particular, tyrosine, which is an amino acid that your body uses to make dopamine. So there are certain foods that are especially high in tyrosine, Parmesan cheese being the biggest one, fish like salmon and tuna, turkey, beef, eggs, nuts, seeds, all healthy things for you, right? But that these are particularly helpful to build your dopamine reserves over time.
Nice.
When I was doing the research, I was like, okay, should I have given Jade like a high tyrosine snack after the movie? And no, that's not going to help. It's not like an instant. It's not going to help with that crash in any way. This is really about buffering the baseline.
Yeah. There's some good uses for L-tyrosine as a supplement and L-dopa in the form of mucuna purins, especially if your systems are a little bit out of whack and you need to kind of have a reset around dopamine. Like I've done some work with both of those. Your mileage may vary, but if you struggle with waking up in the morning, or if you want to quit coffee, actually, this is a really good one. If you want to give up coffee, don't give it up without something like L-tyrosine, because you will really hate yourself for many, many weeks.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I guess it's because it really supports dopamine levels.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
After hangovers and bad sleep, I often found myself spooning like almond butter into my mouth.
yes, totally.
This is exactly why. It's a tyrosine.
It's tyrosine.
Heavy food. I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay. All right. Morning sunlight. This as early in the day as possible.
Circadian reset.
Circadian reset, exactly. Yeah. But it also it helps you get your cortisol to release as early in the day as possible.
Okay.
Which is what you want, and it leads to restoring dopamine reserves and all types of homeostasis.
Nice.
So on a sunny day, it's really just 5 to 10 minutes. Cloudy or overcast days, it's like up to 30 minutes. But apparently it's especially important to get outside on cloudy days.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, because the light.
Correct. Because
Yeah.
there's less light getting inside. So you want to go outside. So
Right.
that's probably like my favorite thing that Winston has done for us is that he gets me outside first thing every morning as soon as the sun is up. Sometimes the sun isn't even quite up. Right. And then the last one is movement. So regular exercise that's both cardiovascular and strength training can really help support dopamine levels.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this has been our conversation on dopamine moats, right?
Yeah.
And I think that dopamine is wonderful. It fuels humans to do incredible things. But the real question is really, in today's world, given that cheap dopamine is ever present, can we learn to harness it to provide lasting motivation? Or are we kind of going to get swept up in the tsunami that is cheap dopamine, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, what I take away is that we're going to try to continue to reduce our reliance on external kind of instant forces of dopamine and to really promote activities that naturally stimulate dopamine release.
Totally. I think we're committed to that path. I love talking about this stuff because I think it's important from a family culture perspective to understand like what are these factors that we're up against,
Sure.
right? I think that everyone building any product for a consumer is probably building it around cheap dopamine these days.
It would behoove them for sure.
Exactly. So part of the dopamine moat is pretty obvious, but it's keeping out advertising, keeping out, buying the ad-free version of everything that our kids see, that we see, like not turning on the news, not having, any news email alerts or anything like that.
I hear you. And I understand how initially that would be your reaction. I just don't know how realistic that is. And I would just caution us against being too, like, if there's one thing that this trip has taught me, it's that I want to invite the outside world in more.
Totally.
And so I don't necessarily ascribe to the idea of completely sheltering the children from what's out there. What I do want to do is open the conversation about how pervasive this stuff is and help them become discerning consumers as early as possible.
Yep.
And to normalize and to just like Brene Brown says that normalization is the antidote to shame, and that just to normalize that this is a normal, that everybody loves to eat a bag of chips, that like it's very hard to find someone who's going to be okay eating 3 chips, right? And so if you ate a bag of chips, like that's cool, it happens, but like what can you learn from it? Mm-hmm. What just happened here?
No, I agree with everything you said. I do want to invite the outside world in. I just don't want it to be invited in through an ad exchange, through a place like.
But this is like a teach a man a fish versus give a man a fish kind of thing. If you block all of that, and I feel like I have friends who were really sheltered growing up and then they got to college and they went nuts. Like, I don't want to completely block our children from things out there. I want to, especially Hunter, who's 7 at this point, like she can think critically. Like she can become, especially if we teach her about, the Charlie Mungerism of like, show me the incentives and I'll show you, what is it?
The outcomes.
The outcomes. Like, what are these people's incentives? What are they trying to motivate you to do? And do you want to do it?
Yep. No, totally.
Great. Have I changed your mind?
Yeah. You and you've definitely changed my perspective on the sheltering. The news, not so much. I just don't believe that news has any place in it.
I didn't say news.
Yeah. No, we can debate that another time. But like, I'm a staunch teetotaler when it comes to any kind of news, like getting that doesn't appeal to you. That doesn't apply to you coming into the house. So like New York Times, like news alerts off. Like
that's a whole nother conversation for a different episode.
But those are dopamine
I have some
hits.
thoughts on those too.
Those are cheap dopamine hits.
100%. I think you could add that in same day Amazon deliveries, like
that's
New York
number
Times
one
news
on my
alerts,
list.
all the things. The dopamine just keeps rolling in. But yeah, so I think we've said enough and would love to hear if anybody else has some innovative ideas of how to build a dopamine moat around your family. Let us know.
Yeah, totally.
Okay,
It's
great.
been great.
Yay, so fun.
Yay.
Love you,
All
Goosey.
right. Love you, Goosey.
Hey guys, if you're still here, you're definitely our kind of person. Thanks for spending this time with us on the most important thing. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and share it with someone else building family culture on purpose.